Driving our Sierra into the shop today. I smell something burning, got those black oil stains on the driveway. I'm suspecting an oil leak. It's got 165,000 miles. Disturbing? Not really. Actually, it's quite common. Join us today on Tech Garage as we find out why our Sierra is smoking in all the wrong places. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by Advance Auto Parts. Now we got our 2007 GMC Sierra in the shop, and by all looks of it, it's in excellent condition. The key is 160,000 miles. Now, Brian, anything, no matter how good it looks, with 160,000 miles, are going to have some engine issues, and mine's basically smelling some burning, and I got those drips on the driveway. What'd you find?
Yeah, there's some clues there. You know, as simple as a leak sounds to repair, there's a right and a wrong way to go about doing that, which is what we're doing today. You always want to work from the top down. And so obviously, if we've got a leak, it's coming from a fluid. It's got to be probably a petroleum-based fluid if you're smelling it. So I've gone to all the reservoirs, to the, the coolant reservoir, to the brakes, to the power steering fluid. No obvious leaks anywhere at any of those points of contact. But I did find a leak right down here in the middle of the driver's side valve cover. You can see it on the exhaust manifold.
Yep, sure can.
Where it's dark. That's probably what you're smelling. You mentioned black oil stain, black type of stain on your driveway, and a smell. That typically is oil. So I think I'm going to dive into this side.
Yeah, and that's the first thing to do, is actually just check for the leaks. I mean, there's several methods to do it, and I'm going to show them to you in a minute. But remember, you got 160,000 miles on your vehicle, your engine's going to start to have some blow-by, and with that, there could be other seals leaking. So always start at the top. That's a good place, the valve cover, and then work your way down. Look for the other leaks a little bit later. You cleaned it off. I think you nailed it. Go ahead and get started with the valve cover, and I'll set up the engine demo.
All right, I'll do it. So I've got the cover off here, and I got to get this valve cover off, but to do that, we've got 4 ignition coil packs and, of course, the spark plug wires. So you'll notice that we're working on the driver's side. Here's the alternator, and so, of course, there's the hot leg coming from the battery. When I pull that cover up, no way I want that cover to touch it and arc, create any kind of spark, so we've got the battery disconnected and safely out of the loop. So with the ignition coil packs, just 10mm bolts, couldn't be easier. I like to label everything, masking tape and a Sharpie. So far this cost you nothing. It's just good organization, so when we put it back together, firing orders right, everything's running well. And I'm going to jump into that. So the first thing is I like to pull the spark plug wires off. These can be brittle, these can be a pain. We'll get this first one. Well, happens to the best of us. The first one broke already. I'm guessing others just might. Very brittle, the plug pulled right out, so I think this is going to be a candidate to go ahead and replace the wires. I've tried to recrimp these. It typically doesn't work very well. So let me get all this going while John explains all the other ways you can find leaks.
Now, there's several methods when it comes to checking for oil leaks or leak detection for any fluid for that matter. But before you do any of that, you want to clean the surface really, really well. We got some Purple Power right here in a bottle. Spray it down, make sure it's really, really clean. And then the gunk here, the engine degreaser, that works great. Just spray it on there. And like Brian said, run it through a heat cycle. Let it go ahead and dry everything off, and then kind of check for the oil leak as it starts to actually seep through some of the components. Now, methods to do it with. I like to use the actual dye, but you can go down to the convenience store. You can get some of this foot powder or any kind of spray powder. I actually got this out of Brian Gregory's wardrobe trailer. It works really, really good. I just spray it around the engine there. Let it run, check for the wet spot. Really simple, but this one here, now this is the cream of the crop. This is UV dye detection, and what you can do is you can put this in any fluid, and this is cool because it mixes in a little bit right here, and it goes in there and it mixes with the oil, coolant, power steering fluid, anything. You can drive the car for a while, and then you can come back and you can use these UV glasses, and you can use this black light, and you can check it and see what it looks like. Well, as a matter of fact, I can go ahead and show you a little bit. I'm gonna take a little bit out right here, put it on this white surface, and if I shoot it with this light right here, it's going to show up really bright, and that's great because you can check it and you can see where it's coming from. But don't forget, work from the top down. Clean the engine. Oil flows downhill. So Brian was checking the valve cover. We don't know or we don't suspect that there's any other leaks, but we're going to have to work the way down once we seal that up. Well, he found the valve cover, so we went ahead to Proform, and we got these nice upgraded valve covers, which are really, really nice. But the key here is this Felpro gasket. I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to show you it's super nice because it's got the little tabs, and we can just run it around here and put it in the valve cover. And what makes it so unique is that it's actually running down in the track. There's little tabs. And a lot of problem people have is once they put the valve cover in, you go to flip it over to put it in, the gasket falls out. Maybe it's not seating right. So it's real important to get a good feel for that as you put it in there and you're making sure it's not popping out. But this one's nice because you can see I got it seated in there real nice along with the Proform actual valve cover. I can flip this over, shake it, nothing's gonna happen. That thing's staying in there and it's gonna do a really nice job sealing up the engine. Now there's some common engine leak points. Come on over here to the engine and I wanna show them to you. Some things just to look for right out in your driveway. You wanna look for valve covers. Like Brian said, just come around your whole valve cover, take a good visual inspection around there, all the way around, both sides of your engine. If you have a V8, look at both valve covers. Also, there's the intake manifold. You could have a wet or a dry intake system, but you want to look where it seals to the block here in the front and the rear. Make sure there's no oil seeping from there. Now, you also may have an engine that has a front timing cover. Well, that's a good place. The timing covers leak all the time, and or the rear main seal or the front seal is located right down here on the harmonic balancer. That goes to the crankshaft. You could leak oil out of there. And of course, then there's the oil pan on the bottom. Now, the oil pan, that's a prime suspect, but you got to start from the top and work your way all the way down to the bottom. It's not too difficult.
Well, it's really not. And the good news and bad news here with this discovery, we did find the issue on the valve cover, and you can see this gasket where it was kind of pinched. Now, interestingly enough, John, this gasket doesn't look that old. Somebody's had this off recently, and I think on the reinstall, they actually pinched it and crimped it here, which is pretty common.
Well, I'll tell you what, yeah, exactly. If that Felpro I got here, that's going to solve the problem. And Brian, to top it off, I got you these gorgeous Proform valve covers here.
Yeah, I love it.
We're going to move the coils up a little bit so we can actually see them. Dress the engine up as you're doing it, but check this out. That's the Felpro gasket, man.
Yeah.
That thing's not coming out of there.
Love it.
When you put it on, just make sure you feel that it's not clunking, it's not rattling. It should just be a thunk, a solid feel. You should feel the gasket in there. It's really an art form, but once you feel it's solid, put it down. Torque specifications are key. Well, that's the good news. What's the bad news?
Well, the bad news is, you know what? It happens to all of us.
Done it
Those
100
are
times.
brittle boots. I know, I hate to admit how many times I've done this, but I think this is a candidate. We got to go ahead and replace the wires with the amount of miles on this truck. So, yeah, sorry about that.
Well, we'll get our truck all dressed up with new coils, new spark plug wires. Man, we're just going to deck this thing out. Here's the valve cover.
Thanks.
Stick around. We'll be back with more Tech Garage right after this break.